He was just a poor working man, went to work with his tea in an old billy can. He died in Spain with a gun in his hand, fighting against Franco for freedom. And the Internationale was the song they would sing. Through the valleys and mountains their voices would ring. From America to China, not for country and a king, they came to fight against Franco for freedom.
With their treacherous journey made, once in Spain the volunteers were sent for basic training. Any exuberance and excitement soon gave way to horror and alarm as the harsh reality of war set in. The watershed moment for John Longdrigan came while he passed through Barcelona on a train.
From Figueras we proceeded down towards Albacete, which is the International Brigade base, the 15th International Brigade base. But in the process of going down there, we stopped at Barcelona, passing for about half an hour. And this was the first taste of war, because an air raid was in progress at the time. And it was the first time we'd actually seen bodies, men, women, and children, I expect, spread all over the street and so forth, and the rubble of houses coming down. So something we would also experience later on in the Second World War. But at this particular time, it was something completely new. The bombing of civilians, the civilian population, using them as part of the target, the war target and that. And we were shocked to see such a thing happening there.
Daniel Gray works at the National Library of Scotland. Though a Yorkshireman, he was absorbed by the strength of Scotland's relationship with the Spanish Civil War.
When I was a teenager, my favourite band was the Manic Street Preachers, and they had a song called If You Tolerate This, Your Children Will Be Next. And I thought, what a bizarre song title. I'll follow that up and see what it's about. And managed to find that was a poster from the Spanish Civil War, which wasn't really a conflict I'd ever studied at school or anything. And the more I read about the Spanish Civil War, the more I thought, that really strikes a chord with me. The passion, obviously, the compassion, I suppose, in me, it just struck something. So from that song, I went backwards and backwards towards the Spanish Civil War, and it basically became a bit of an obsession, I suppose. In the privileged position of working in this library, I was able to then go through the letters that we have from brigaders sent back. So to have these incredible resources from different brigaders sent back from the time just set my mind on fire, really. To really have history on my hands, and it really is that, to be able to hold this letter here, written from Spain, from a trench on Hill 481, which is a hill outside Ebro before the Battle of the Ebro. I mean, that's something just really incredible that a book just simply could never give me.
Daniel's book is being launched in a Madrid bookshop. As well as the story of Caledonian adventure, he brings with him a taste of Scotland in the shape of malt whisky and shortbread. Visiting Spain will allow him to retrace the steps of the Scots he has written about. Daniel's journey begins in the Jarama Valley, south of Madrid.
It's a real honour to be in Spain. It feels like, in some ways, I've joined the circle and finally finished the journey, bringing the book here. 549 Scots fought in Spain during the Civil War, and a third of them are still here, sleeping under the Spanish soil they came to defend from fascism. Today, I stood looking down on the Jarama Valley and in the trenches where so many of these men were. In that place and others, they laughed, argued and shot and received bullets.
In February 1937, the newly formed British Battalion of the International Brigades had arrived at Jarama and been given the task of stemming a fascist advance on the Spanish capital. Over 100 Scots were involved in wading through the winter mud to wage war. Today, all in the Jarama Valley is peaceful and thistles grow proudly among the poppies. Nature wildly and yet appropriately marking the area where 35 Scots fell. The Battle of Jarama was an almighty slog that set the fault lines for this most bloody of conflicts.
There were so many mistakes made at that time, you know. The slaughter was terrific in Harama.
Hitler sent over his Panzer Division and his Junkers 52 and his fighters, and the troops were coming over the Morocco Straits, and the fighting was absolutely horrendous at Harama. And I think that was the worst moment of my whole time in Spain.
The men started to drop like 9 pins. Who firing a shot? Never saw the enemy. They were just dropping and running up. I would say that in the first 100 yards we run, there must have been about a fourth of the battalion dropped. Most of them had dropped and died. They were at my side, but you didn't know whether they were just falling down or they got to sleep. But you didn't see a horrible death. Yes, it was just a natural.
But it come out, you know, they're shouting for stretcher bearers, and this lad now went across the number 1. And the first fella we picked up was a fella called Ralph Campo. He'd been secretary of the YCL in London, a big fellow, about 16 stone, wounded in the stomach. And we got him on the stretcher, and we're going down the hills. And how we got across this valley, I don't know, because it was being riddled, you know, with machine gun fire. And we eventually got him back, but he died, you know, as a result of his wounds.
I mean, I didn't go there. I believe in violence. I mean, if you don't believe in violence, you don't go to war.
Despite the loss and capture of so many men, the battalion fought on and eventually played a key part in holding back Franco's forces.
To finally come here to the Harama Valley is just something else for me, because I've read so much about this battle. I've read so many letters possibly written from these trenches, but to see the lie of the land in the place where Alex McDade wrote his song about this place really is just a different experience, and brings it a lot more home to me than pieces of paper ever really can. It's very, very beautiful countryside, so I dare say the Scots would have felt at home here. But yeah, it's really something.
Achieving a stalemate after debilitating and horrific early losses earned the Battle of Harama legendary status among Scottish volunteers. Emboldened by the outcome of the battle, the British battalion's leaders planned an offensive at Brunetti, to the west of Madrid. In the baking July heat, optimism soon turned to terror. The British were slaughtered. Of 331 men present on the first day of battle, 289 were killed, wounded or captured by the last. Scots suffered more than most.
I think everybody would agree that Brunetti, we were all in fear of our life at that time. There was such a barrage put down. It was all open terrain. There was nowhere where you could take cover. And there was mortar fire, shell fire, tank fire, artillery, you name it, it was thrown at us. There was the Stukas were coming down, you know, they were shooting at us. There was Junkers, they were bombing us. And I think that was the worst time. It was absolute terror. I was lying in a ditch and the bullets from the planes were up and down the side of the road. And you just expected any time you'd had your number was up. It was a terrifying experience, very terrifying.
We were carrying ammunition to one of the guns from our ammunition dump along a straight communication trench, and we came under shell fire. And Bill Moses, a wee miner, I think, from Ayrshire, he got down, and he was in front of me. He got down on the ground, and and I got down behind him, and Black knelt beside my knees, and the shell came along and killed John Black, and this Frenchman was just behind him and took his head away. But that was a terrible moment, but the shock of it sort of dulled it.
The sergeant in my group here, Sergeant Black, I always remember him, Sergeant Black from Dover. He was chairman of the Dover Labour Party. Excuse me. He was a great friend of mine, and he would kill the Brunetti. And the comradeship was based on this. Your life depended on the man next to you, your friend next to you, and so forth. Yeah, right? And it couldn't be anything else but total trust between one another. We went to Spain, and I was a communist. Sergeant Black, he was a member of the Labour Party, and somebody else could be a member of no political party or anything else the case may be. But the one thing we had in common, we were anti-fascists. We're there to do a particular job, irrespective of what our political beliefs may be.
Since moving to a town near Brunetti, Ernesto Viñas has carried out painstaking research on the bloody battle which took part on his doorstep. He now helps people from Scotland and beyond understand what happened when their relatives fought here.
I know, and I try to research about the both armies. My particular political preferences, of course, are beside Republican fight, but I feel a lot of respect and curiosity for the world history. So I speak with anyone coming to me to know, and if I can help, I feel happy. Here there is a great problem that many, especially Republican soldiers, were dead and had to be abandoned in the battlefield. And when they finally retreat, many of the bodies remain lost there. There are something like maybe 5,000 or 6,000 people lost in the Republican Army. I think it's a speculation because the land was finally in the Franco's army's hand, and they buried, or I don't know what they did with the bodies.
By the summer of 1937, the Scots who fought Franco were demoralised and had witnessed slaughter on an unimaginable scale. The great cause they had pledged themselves to was ridden with bleak reality. In Spain, their idealism had been severely tested. It would take an iron will for them to continue the fight. They had found hell.
War, you can only describe it as an emotional event. You forget about the bombs and the shells and all the rest of it. It's your emotion, you go past your own emotions. You get scared. Anybody who goes to war and says he's not scared, he's a liar, he's a fool. You get scared initially, but you conquer your fear to a limited extent. It's the emotional side of the war that always impressed me. Not the bombing and the guns, the shells dropping and the bullets flying and that. These are things you expect in war, that's what war's all about. But it's the effect on the people that I was concerned with.
They were mostly communal burials. There's nothing else one could do when you're over there. The dead were brought forward and they're placed out, and we dug the grave, of course, naturally, and I was among quite a few burial parties, and they buried them then, and we always sang "The Lord's My Shepherd." All the men that were there, and there's very few that don't know the words of "The Lord's My Shepherd," and we sang that at any of the burials that I was present at, and I think it was 6 I was present at burials of that kind, and buried in communal graves.
I saw a young American bloke lying on a stretcher waiting for him for the ambulance to take him away, just round about the same position. And the poor bloke had been shot through from side to side by a burst of machine gun fire right through his chest and his stomach. And the bloke was just lying there writhing in agony, and my heart went out to the bloke. You know, I don't know who he was. I don't know whether he survived or not. I should think it'd be extremely unlikely. And I tried, you know, with all the power in my mind to try and give him some of my own strength. That's, I mean, I was not a religious type, but I just felt that, you know, it's about the only thing I could do for the bloke, and I thought that was the most poignant thing, really.